Welcome back to the Collaborative IEP Podcast. I'm Ashley Barlow, your host, and I am so happy you are here. Oh man, friends, before we get too far, I want to thank you for showing up to the 6th annual virtual free special education and advocacy conference. Our numbers are still trickling in, of course, but at the moment, it's looking like we were able to reach over 30%, almost 40% more people this year, which is a dream come true. I think I've been really transparent here on the podcast and on social media about how I was starting to worry about the future of this business and the future of its kind of like evergreen stuff that lives online, the consulting and the speaking and the advocacy work that I've always done over here would have continued. But I was really starting to worry that people were not engaged. And this conference has renewed my spirit and is one data point among many telling me that we're back. We're back, baby. And we are interested in advocating for kids. Another trend that I saw in the conference that is really, really inspiring, and I think everybody should know, is that we had far more professionals showing up. We had teachers, we had therapists, we had behaviorists, we had various different groups of professionals that sit on IEP teams show up and say, hey, I want to help. And that is just so encouraging to me. And as a parent, I think if you are a parent listening to the podcast, I think that's really important for you to know as well. So that is really exciting. If you missed the conference and you would like access to the conference, that All Access Pass is still available. You get access to all 16 presentations as well, which are all somewhere in the neighborhood of like 30 to 50 minutes, as well as all of the freebies and some bonus content. And it is $97 now that the conference has closed. So please join us. It was wonderful. There are so many great comments and conversations in the comment section as well. Such great community happening. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And also thank you to my presenters. You know, as you can imagine, that product is not designed to make a whole lot of money. It's designed to really give you information on all of the tools it takes to be an effective special education advocate. So we had sessions on legal concepts, we had sessions on advocacy content, and we had sessions on the nuts and bolts of supporting students with disabilities. And as you know, I always try to cover the gamut. So we had things from preschool to transition aged. We had things on topics relative to speech intervention, behavior supports, reading, and you name it, everything in between. So I'm really, really, really grateful, and I welcome you to join us if you have not yet done that. As a result of people being so engaged and so excited about what was happening in the conference, I got a little extra excited, and I decided to open my digital course called Advocacy, Business, and Concepts in Special Education. We call it the ABC course. I decided to open it like 6 weeks early. We were not going to open it until May-ish. We actually didn't even have a date on the calendar. And I decided to open it early. So I called Rachel and said, hey, what's it take to turn on that course? And so if you have ever thought about becoming an advocate, or if you are an advocate and you would like to grow your business, develop as an advocate, you know, get some continuing education and access a community that is similarly minded, then I welcome you to join the ABC course. It is now open, and we will leave it open for about a month. So more to come, but please head over to the website to look at all things ABC as well. And then The other thing I did, because I got so excited, was I was like, okay, so the conference there was this fast action thing. A spoiler alert, I'm always trying to save you guys money too. Again, this business is not necessarily intended to make money, right? My goal is to help get more resources out to parents and professionals that sit on IEP teams, and also to help get out the word that there is a collaborative way to advocate for kids on IEP teams. And so, with that in mind, there was this fast action ticket that you could get to the All Access Pass. It was $47 before the conference. It was $67 during the conference, and it is now $97. However, when you first showed interest, I put this little thing on my website that was like, buy it now in the next 20 minutes and you get it for $27. Okay. And we had a lot of people that spent $27 to get access to 16 sessions and the bonus content. Unfortunately for you, that's not available anymore, and I'm sorry. But I'm telling you, I like to be transparent, and so I'm telling you that that's how that works, and it happens in a lot of things that you can find online nowadays, right? So that $27 ticket was hot. And that got me thinking, well, gosh, people will spend $27 for that. I'm not allowed to tell you how much I bill at, because it could violate antitrust laws for some of the trade organizations that I really love and respect. But I bill it a heck of a lot more than $27 an hour, as you can imagine, or $27 for 16 hours of content. It's not that much, but a lot of content, 2 whole days worth. And I would say that it is reasonable to expect to pay any advocate that's worth their weight, somewhere in the neighborhood of $75 per hour, upwards of $600 an hour, depending on the skill of that person, the training of that person, the area where you live, etc. Right? With a lot of us falling in the probably like $250 to $450 range per hour. And I've got this membership that is $300 for the entire year. So I was like, but people will pay $27. Why don't we make the membership $27 per month? So I reduced the rate of the membership because I want people in the membership. I told you I want to double the number of people in the membership this year. And so that's what we did. So the membership is now $27 a month, or $275 for the year. So if you're interested, head over to the website for that. That's a long commercial, but it's all founded in what you guys did. You showed up for the conference. You told me that you wanted more. You engaged. And so there we have it. The membership, I would say, is more geared towards parents and advocates, whereas the conference is really kind of applicable to parents and professionals. And the ABC course is geared towards folks that are interested in starting or growing as advocates. So I hope you'll join us at those places. And I hope you'll stick around, because now that the world's longest commercial has stopped, I'm really excited to talk about today's topic, which is a short one, but it's so, so important. We're currently in a topic where we are kind of going back to our basics, and we're talking more about true nitty-gritty advocacy skills in the context of those IEP meetings. And these lessons are founded in my very first presentation that I ever gave here at the Collaborative IEP, and it was called Seven Simple Solutions to Sticky IEP Situations. And we have worked our way through some of these. Oops, I missed an S. I was scrolling. 7 simple solutions to solve your sticky IEP situations. Leave it to me to really hammer in the point. So we have talked about bullying. The school staff tries to tell you how it is. We have talked about impasse, when negotiations are just simply stuck. We've talked about discontentedness, when the vibe is just plain bad. And now we are going to talk about misunderstanding. And what happens with misunderstanding is the district just does not understand your interests and your positions. So, you're saying things and the district is like continues to say something that doesn't make any sense, right? Like you continue to not make any progress. Before I tell you like the big, I'm going to give you one little, like, I wish I could listen to myself piece of advice. And that is sometimes it just takes time and persistence to like wait them out. And so I want to give you a little bit, like that sounds like terrible advice from a lawyer or an advocate. Okay. So I want to explain what I'm saying to you. You know how when you talk to your kids or you talk to your partner or you talk to your parent, somebody that you're close to, you have to propose something and make it seem as though it's their idea in order to make it passable. So this also applies with people on any team, especially IEP teams. So the skill is in saying things enough different ways that somebody can finally get it and make it their own. Now, um, what this takes with teams that don't know you as well as your family members or your work colleagues or people that you've known for years, like people on your IP team, right? Most of them you haven't known for years. So, and we all communicate differently. And so it's kind of like not everybody's fault that they don't understand what you're saying, but it is everybody's fault because what you're saying is probably founded in research and evidence and experience and expertise about your kid. So if we can swallow that, which is really hard, if we can swallow that and we continue to reframe things and we can continue to say things in a way such that the people on the other side of the table, that the principal and the special ed director and the OT and the school psychologist and all the other people that are on the other side of the table, if we can say things in such a way that we meet their interest and we talk their language, we might be able to get to a point that they think that something's their idea when it really was yours. We might get to the point where you're like, yes, that's what I've been saying for 6 months. Okay. This happens a lot, especially when parents DIY, because parents aren't skilled at advocacy, right? We talked about that in our last podcast episode, when to know that it's time to hire an attorney, kind of. So, what I want, what my point here is sometimes that takes 2 or 3 or 6 months. One time for me, it took literally 9 months and like hives, and I was losing hair. But that was still faster and cheaper and more, even though it was incredibly frustrating, it still preserved relationships better than litigation. So, unfortunately, sometimes, even though the process is slow of getting to an agreement by kind of like waiting somebody out, trying to get to the point where somebody thinks that something's their idea and then it's palatable, that is usually more efficient than litigation. I am not anti-litigation at all, but I'm a pragmatist. And when I quote the cost and the risk of litigation to clients, which I do on a weekly basis, I acknowledge that it is an extremely expensive process, and most people don't have the luxury of taking the risk of filing due process or otherwise litigating a matter. So I want to say that kind of as like a caveat baseline, but my very simple solution to this sticky situation, which again, the sticky situation is, what do I do when school just isn't like getting, when I feel misunderstood, when they don't seem to understand my why, my like, this is what we need position, and and here's why. Okay. So my position, this is what we need, and my interest, this is why. What do I do in that situation? And my like number one easiest tip is to stop the meeting, take a break, go home, and write. Write. WRITE, write about it. Here's why. When we are advocating for our kids at school, we are in an emotional state. School is very important. Our kids are importanter. I saw a t-shirt at a swim meet one time that says school is important, swimming is importanter. And I took a picture of it. And when I did like my excuse note, I included that picture because I was like, well, this isn't going to be excused, but I hope you get a laugh out of the t-shirt. And I just used the joke myself. So school is important. Our kids are important. Oftentimes, if we're in a situation that's sticky, it has a little bit of history. So, and nobody's like really just jazzing for conflict, especially not at your kid's IEP. Like if we want conflict, we'll go find it with our, at our Thanksgiving table. We don't need it at school. And so most of the time, we're all kind of there, like begrudging, like, gosh, can't you just understand me and fix this so that we can get on with it and make progress for my kid, right? Like, might be the most relatable thing that I've ever said to you. So when we are in that situation, we all kind of have our go-tos. I talk, and talk some more. Some people shut down, some people yell. Most people do things that are not productive. And when we are not productive, we are not effective. So what we should do is we should say, you know what? I feel like we might be getting to a point where we aren't going to make any progress. Why don't we stop now? And why don't we get back together in a little bit? And I'll tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to gather my thoughts and I'll try to put something together that like kind of articulates what my thoughts are such that when we get back together, we can be more effective. Aha, eureka, what you have done is you have made yourself an objective plan. Now you can be more objective because you're going to plan it out. It's that simple. So pause and write. And when you write, do it in an organized, effective manner. This is what I want, and this is why. In law school, if you've been listening long enough, you know that we talk about IRAC. You state the issue. You state the rule. The rule in this case is going to be objective data. Research says, his therapist says, his tutor says, his doctor says, your curriculum says, your handbook says, your policy says, the rule, okay? Then application. And here's why that matters to my kid. Here is how we apply that rule, that policy, that curriculum, that fidelity program, that evidence-based practice to my kid, the application. And the C is conclusion. And therefore, I win, you lose, write it in the IEP, move on. Okay? Now, you do this in a collaborative way. So it's very objective. It's very team-based. You're going to include some thanks to the people. You're going to keep it very child-centered. You're going to do all of those things. And you're going to do that well because you're going to have time to stop and write. And guess what? You can take it to your next door neighbor and say, hey, do you think this looks pretty collaborative? Do you think this looks pretty objective? This is where we were. Do you think that my tone is fostering teamwork? Or you can use my friend, ChatGPT, and you can say, here's the situation. Now, can you please tell me if you think this is collaborative or if this is fostering teamwork, right? So pause and write. It is a very simple solution, but it helps you to convey your emotional stuff in a very objective way. It also serves the purpose of establishing a record, which is very helpful if you do end up in litigation, and it allows you to come back and to insert information about those rules. So you can attach the research, you can say, you can reference data, you can get additional documentation from your tutors and your therapists and your doctors and all of those people, which is really, really, really valuable to people like me, advocates and attorneys that rely on that kind of paperwork. But most of all, it's effective for advocacy because it lets you stop and think and make things more objective. So use that solution to the sticky situation when you feel misunderstood. I will see you next week. Same time, same place. Have a great week.